Right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Movementer Mental Health Awareness live discussion. My goodness, I've actually been a whole week without doing one, and I nearly forgot what this was all about. Right. We've just been having a few technical issues background, trying to get Lois to remain on camera without being kicked off by technology. And then we got timed out. So what I'm going to very quickly do, if anybody pops in, is I'm going to now go and find the new link. So we're going to have to work around this now for everyone who was following the original invite. So what I've now got to do is find the new video. There we are. Put it on mute before we get feedback. And I'm going to copy the link and paste it under the original invite. Technical issues. How do you read that? Paste it on there, and hopefully anybody who was following that will get the link to the new one. There we go. Right. So that should all come into play now. We are running on Facebook. We are running on StreamYard. We are here. Thank you very much for bearing with me through that. Oh, the joys of technology. And I say this so many times at the start of a video. Mastering life is all about mastering change. And this is what we do. We change with the times, we change with the technology. And you know, life throws challenges at us, and just work around them. There's always a workaround. So anyway, welcome, Lois Wagner. Hello.
Thank you, Kay. And I apologize to everybody. And I look very dark. I had to move from my laptop to my phone, and I don't know how to get the lighting right. So I apologize.
Well, no, because you had some lighting on behind you, didn't you? But then you were in the dark, and it was like this bit. But we can see your face. You have a beautiful glow. You do.
Right.
We can see you smiling, and that's the most important part. And we can hear you. So if you want to put the lights on again, please do. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, we can. That looks better already.
Oh, that's lovely. Yep.
Okay.
That really shows your curls up lovely. So thank you to everybody who's found the new link. It's working. So as what I said, we work with the change. So thank you to everyone who's found their way here to the new stream, because we had issues just explaining. Lois kept getting kicked off the video, so we had to try a different route, and then it kicked us out of the live altogether before we'd even gone live. So we both got evicted, didn't we? And had to start from scratch. But we get there. So yes, brilliant. We are not that far behind. That's not bad. That's not bad. We've had far more technical difficulties on the screen before now. So yes, Lois, it's trying to think. That was a few weeks back now that you requested to join the discussion, wasn't it? Through the Speaker Hub. And I think it was you. There was something you wanted to join that week or something because of a campaign. Was that you?
Yes, it was during the 16 days of activism.
That's right, yes. And unfortunately, I had such a full lineup. I tried to catch you one night, short notice, but you were already on another live call that night. And then the time you realised it was too late. But we're here. We've got you in. We've got you in.
Great.
Before the end of the year.
Yes,
So
this will probably be my last call of the year.
Oh, bless. Yeah. I think I've got one more. We're doing one between Christmas and New Year because it's a weekly challenge. So I've got one more to do. And I'll probably do some other lives in between. But yeah. So thank you. We're going to take a deep breath and wind down now.
I'm playing the lights to see if I can make it better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if anybody's in the room, say hi. We'd love to know who's here. Just say hello and let us know you're about. I can see we've got a couple of people in the room. So yes, you're talking about activism, and obviously this is just casual discussion, me and you tonight, about mental health awareness. And your topic of activism is another brand new topic to the show, because every week I have something entirely different. It's incredible how many subjects there are around mental health awareness. So, yeah, so I'm going to hand over to you now and let you introduce yourself and your book and tell us what it is that you do. Thank you.
Right. Well, I am walking without skin. And basically it's about vulnerability, and it's about sharing your vulnerability. So what I do is I help people move from victim to survivor to thriver and beyond to freedom after facing some major life challenge or adversity. And I do that by teaching them resilience, grit, a growth mindset, and learning how to forgive. And that leads you to your freedom and mental health.
Brilliant. Sorry, I've just had a pop up from Yvette to say she can't hear us. And I want to, is that both of us or just one of us, Yvette? So I don't want to sit here and talk for an hour and then find nobody's heard you. Let me just see if, is that both of us? One of us? That's playing on there. I don't want to see it. No, it's playing on there. We're okay. Right. Sorry about that, Lois. So technology is being great fun to us tonight. Right. Yes, sorry. So go again. Can I just ask you to repeat that for my benefit? Because I just got distracted by the fact that we might have sound issues on top of all the video issues.
Okay, so I help people move from victim to survivor to thriver and beyond to freedom by using resilience, grit, a growth mindset, and finally, forgiveness.
Oh, brilliant. Resilience, grit to growth, mindset, and forgiveness.
And forgiveness.
That is quite a journey, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. And it's a journey that we all go through after facing a major challenge or adversity in life. We all have that first phase of victim, anger, hatred, denial, whatever that is, blame, guilt, all those emotions that we have. And when you have those emotions, you're in the victim mode. And we need to move out of that as quickly as possible, because that's what makes you ill, is when you stay in victim mode too long.
Yes, that does. It can take a long time to get out of that without the right support as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, Yvette's still saying she's lip reading. Let me just actually pop a message on there to say, sorry, hi Yvette. Because she watches every week, bless her. She doesn't normally have. It's working on my laptop. Laptop. She doesn't normally have issues listening in, so that's unusual. Right, there we go. So yes, yeah, having been there, I know it can take a long time when you don't have the right knowledge, and it's having that right support as well, or the ability to be able to speak up and find your voice around it. It can really hold you back for many, many years. And you hear a lot of people saying sometimes being stuck in that mode for even 10, 15, 20 years.
Absolutely. But it's so important that you do experience those emotions. You can't just ignore them. You can't avoid them. They're there for a reason. And it's important that you process those emotions.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I've the little logo up there above your head on the screen, that's about how I've recognized the emotional cycle over years as a visual concept. And throughout the sort of book, I explain how we do have to work through emotions. Your brain, I always think a nice way to explain it is we can go weeks without food, we can go days without water, and we can go minutes without air, but you can barely go seconds without an emotion.
So true. So true. Yeah. The emotion we've been feeling trying to get this technology together was quite intense.
Yeah, I know, and I'm still having problems. This is the most technology issues I've had for quite a while actually on these. So it's really, really testing us tonight, but we will survive with a smile. But yeah, that's one of the things I've always thought about in recent years is how actually we rely on our emotions more so than all the rest of it, but we don't look after our emotions as well, or we're not taught to. It's not taught as a basic survival skill like eating and drinking fluids and just breathing. But yeah, absolutely important to work through those emotions. So how did your book come about? You say your book's called Walking Without Skin.
Yes.
What does that mean in terms of the title to begin with?
Okay, well, it's about vulnerability. So I don't know if you can see the book. That's what it looks like.
Okay, yeah.
So it's about vulnerability. So when the skin is what holds you together, it's what protects you. And we go through life, and after facing some major challenge, we exposed and we vulnerable. So that's why the name came about. So
Oh, right.
it's about my vulnerability after my challenge, after a number of my challenges. I don't know if you want me to go into detail as to what those challenges were.
You can do. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy for you to do that. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I was
providing you want
brutally
to. Yeah.
I was brutally attacked and raped, and it took me 14 years to reach freedom from there. And then
Mm,
also I lost a business. I was betrayed by a business partner. I lost the business and went deep into debt. So I had to face that
mm,
uh, challenge as well. So it's all about overcoming these challenges and moving out of that victim mode.
mm. Oh, wow, that sounds like a lot to go through. Can certainly sympathise with that, like you said, having to deal with that victim mode, and sometimes betrayal is as much, and it can be as painful emotionally as an attack, can't it? I know you got your physical side with the attack, but betrayal
Yeah.
is still just as emotionally painful.
I
Mm.
think I hated the business partner more than I hated the rapist.
Yeah, I can understand that. I really can actually. Yeah, yeah. Having been
I
through
u-
both sets of emotions myself, I can understand that. Yes, very
I
clearly.
used to I used to say if I saw the business partner in the street and I was driving my car, I would ride him over.
Yeah, it's funny actually because I said that for years. There was a particular relationship I was in about 30 years ago, and I said for 10 years afterwards, I said if I ever saw him in the street, I'd just punch him in the face. I really did so. I would have done. And then, like you say, you learn to forgive and let go. And it was just like, and it was now if he'd have walked past in the street, I'd have said, "Oh, hello," and it just would have been different. I've never seen him, but it would have
Yeah,
been a different emotion. But yeah, it can take a long time to get over what people do to you. Um,
absolutely.
and it was like actually, I got badly treated by a partner because of something that happened to me, and he held it against me and accused me rather than supporting me. So I had a double whammy of it. So when basically yes, and I was in my early 20s, I got raped, but the fiance I was with held it over my head and manipulated me with it in a complete morbid jealousy relationship, and I was under 24/7 control. Um,
Oh,
so I yeah went through quite a bit, tried to get help, um, but that went on for about a year before I got out, and yeah, I hated him more in the end than I did what had happened to me, because some was drunk for one night. It was, and I know I laugh at it now, but that was not easy to get over, not easy, and it does take years. So yeah, but I was quite fortunate. I was not brutally beaten or anything. And it sounds strange to say you've been raped but not brutally beaten, but not everybody literally fists and punches you and hurts you. Um, it's there are different levels of it, but to go through that sounds awful.
yeah. It was what added insult to injury was that I was raped on the business premises,
Oh
and
goodness.
um, and I didn't want to stay there anymore. And so my partner and I agreed that we would dissolve the business, or he would buy the business from me. So instead of buying the business, he put it into liquidation so that he could buy it back from the liquidators at a tenth of the price.
Oh no, that should be classed as corruption, though, shouldn't it? Doing that, you shouldn't go back to the person liquidating it. That's
Well, I
not
stopped
right.
it. I made sure that somebody else bought it.
Oh,
So,
well done, you. Well done. And then, did you go back into business with them? No.
no. No, he did though. He went back into business with them.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you still didn't win altogether, bless. But
I
you've come
won
through it
because
all.
I won because I got out of it. It was the wrong place for me anyway. So
I should
it
think so after
was,
that, yeah.
in retrospect, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that
Mm.
I moved away from that and found my true calling.
Oh. And that's in the coaching.
It's in the coaching. You know, when I left that business, I went back into the corporate world. I was in marketing, and then I moved into training, and then from there I moved into coaching. But it was very much in the corporate world and not in the personal development world. And it's only since my forced retirement, so that is another
Yeah.
adversity.
Yeah.
I was living in the Middle East, and they don't like people over a certain age, and so they wouldn't renew my work visa. And
Oh,
so I had to come home, and at that advanced age, I thought, did I want to go back into corporate? So I started in the personal transformation area.
oh, brilliant. Yeah. No, it's just strange, isn't it? That I bet somewhere in the background, though, all of that corporate um information that you've absorbed along the way has actually helped you with what you're doing now, though, isn't it?
Well,
Because you're
absolutely, yes.
is
And
ex-doctors now.
I
What's your
still do a bit of
doctorate going?
corporate work. I still do a bit of corporate work. So
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, because it's just funny actually. We're going through a very similar path because I actually gave up my corporate job 3 years, 3.5 years ago to do what I'm now going to do. Um, but then I had a different kind of betrayal. I got given the ultimatum between my business and my marriage, and I chose my marriage. And then this year lost my marriage, my home, my job, got put in lockdown, everything. So I just thought there was nothing else to stop me doing my business now. I'd lost
that's
everything else.
good.
This is the one thing I'd got left was my spark for this. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's good. Oh, that's great.
yeah,
So yes, our journeys are very similar.
that does sound it. Yeah, in different ways. Obviously different circumstances, but it's kind of interesting actually because I've said through a lot of these live discussions how even though every single speaker has got a different story and a different strategy, there are so many patterns throughout in how people go through things and how they transform from them, how they learn to cope with them. And the system, like you were saying about from resilience to grit through to forgiveness, that is that process. And everybody has to go through that emotional process. And it's really good
Absolutely.
to keep sharing these consistencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're victim, as I say, you have all those negative emotions. And then when you move into survivor, that is when you start getting your courage back and you start fighting.
Mm.
You start saying, I want I want to change the world. For me, I wanted to change the world and I became an activist. It happened long before the Me Too movement, and the word rape was never mentioned in polite circles. And
Okay.
so I was so angry. I wanted to change the world. So I lobbied and got petitions and led marches. And I was
Wow.
really out there. And so it was quite a journey. And that was my survivor mode. When we say we're a survivor, it's not where we should be. A survivor is still a struggle. When you're surviving, you are still struggling. And a lot of
Yeah.
people say, oh, I'm a rape survivor or a whatever survivor. Um, and
Still going
you
through
don't
it.
want to stop being a survivor. You want to move on from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where you need resilience. Resilience gets you to survivor. And then grit, which is your future focus, it's your passion, it's your perseverance and your persistence, where you forge forward to a new reality. And that's your
Yeah.
grit. That takes you to thriver.
Thriver. That's a much better word than survivor. Thriver.
Yeah,
I like that one.
yeah.
Very good.
So you
So
got to have the grit to get to be a thriver.
yeah, I don't think again that just works in really nicely what you're saying about going through the activism stage is that bit about fighting back and you're trying to fight back for your own life. And one of the things I say is out of the four core emotions, like on the little cycle up the top there, yellow is the top, all the happy emotions. When we say we're on top of the world, and black is the rut and the bottom, so when you're stuck in the pits and in the dark. But the only two ways to go between happy and depressed is because something made you sad or something made you angry. And you have to face up through those emotions, as we're saying, to get back to being happy. And some people will go through the grief and the crying, and they'll have anger in there as well. But it's those who focus more on the anger side to get through, like you say, become activists, and they're like, "That's it, I'm going to go out. They're going to fight the world." And it's still you're still in the red, not come back up to the yellow, isn't it? And you're still holding yourself there in that mode.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, that's why you've got to take that next step. And as I say, the
Mm,
final step, because when after Thriver, you develop the growth mindset. And that is where you say, well, what have I learned from this experience? How has it served me? And for some of us, like you and me, we get a
mm,
benefit mindset, and that's where we give back. So we've taken
yeah.
our adversity and we're using it to help other people. But
Mm,
not everybody will get a benefit mindset. Um, but everybody will at some stage reach the growth mindset. So, what is the lesson here? What have I? How have I grown? How have I benefited through this experience? Because there's always a benefit. Sometimes it's difficult to find, but it's there.
yeah. Yeah, they can, they can be. Although this journey for me is not the one that I'm taking forward as the help one, apart from doing like the live discussions like this. But it's been more about me reflecting on my own emotions. It's not something I've talked about really till tonight. It's not really something I've talked about. But my journey is more about having brought my son through 12 years of suicidal depression. That's what my purpose for giving back is about, to help other parents with depressed suicidal teenagers. So that's a completely different route in a way, but
But you
but
still, it's still a benefit mindset. The benefit from your adversity, you are using it
yeah,
to help
yeah,
other people. So
yeah,
you're having a son with a problem. You're using that to give
mm,
back.
yeah, and it's having experienced that full emotional cycle around trauma and coming
Mm,
back through and transforming from it, as you say, right through to thriving and going past all the grit and the resilience right through to thriving again. And being able to reflect back on all of those emotions is really important. And I think this week I was posting something about, we're all told that sometimes you just need to sit in nature and sit and reflect. But even when you're looking in a reflection, what are you looking for? What are you looking at? What are you trying to find from it? And there's so many things that I think are not filled in the middle of that conversation. It's like, you're here. I'll get this right in a minute. You're here. You need to be here. But nobody tells you about the bit in the middle. They just tell you about the two ends.
yeah.
And
And that's why I think my model works so well, because it says you've got to go through that survivor struggle. You've got to
mm,
go through that thriving, focusing on the future. And only then can you learn your lesson, whatever that lesson
mm,
is. And then, of course, the final step, which is the forgiveness step. And there's people have different viewpoints on forgiveness, but for me, the first thing is to forgive yourself. So, for example, I was attacked when I was working late one night. Okay, why was I working late? Why was I at the office? Why?
mm,
Why? The night before, I'd worked 2 nights in a row. The night before, I was a little bit nervous, and I'd phoned the security company and I said, "Won't you just drive past a few times?" Which they did. The second night, I wasn't nervous, and I didn't phone them and ask them to drive past. And
oh,
so there was that sort of guilt and that self blame that why didn't I call him the second night? And then also, I fought this man. He was violent. He had a screwdriver. He was stabbing me. I fought him, and I fought him hard. Why
mm,
didn't I know how to fight? So I had all of these guilts and these
yeah,
what if and if onlys. And so you've got to forgive yourself for that. I didn't know how to fight. I didn't call the security people. So,
mm,
you can't go through life just having all these negative self blame and self hate and
no,
guilt. You've got to forgive yourself for having those feelings. They're real. They were real. I did say, why couldn't I fight? Why didn't I learn how to fight? It was a very real thing. But
yeah,
you can't live with it forever. So you've got to say, well, I forgive myself that I didn't know how to fight. Nobody had given me the
mm,
reason to know how to fight.
yeah,
And so that's the first step. Forgive yourself for all those emotions. Forgive yourself for the hatred. I hated that partner. Forgive yourself for that feeling. It
mm,
was angry with him. Of course, I was angry with him. And so the hatred was a natural thing at that time.
yeah,
So forgive yourself for it.
absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely. And so there's far too many people go through this, and it's it's far more common than it should be, and far too many. And it's not just
Unfortunately.
women going through this, but men as well.
Yeah,
And I know these days, even with I'm saying it's not that this is a new thing, but the talk around it is much more open these days about all the gender preferences. There's just abuse and rape going on across all sections at the moment, and it's difficult to hear anybody talk about it. Um, and and children as well being abused as children, but
oh,
just coming through that, and it's sometimes, like you said, it's not even just the physical abuse, but the emotional abuse from other people as well, like betrayal. It's still the same process of emotions every time, and
yeah.
learning to go through that. I mean, that's amazing that you've done that, and helping people. And your book sounds like that's a really, really powerful tool. And definitely I'll recommend it, because I'm teaching people to understand emotions, but I'm not teaching them how to cope with very niche topics like survivor strategy. So that's
Mm.
really, really key book to know about, and I'm really pleased to hear about it from you tonight. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's written. I actually started writing it the night it happened. I was so
Oh,
cross. I decided I was going to write it and publish it that very night, and
crikey.
it took me 25 years to get it out.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah,
but
but you
it's
started
written
it.
in a very it's written in a very unique style. I've written it as a journal, so it's a blow by blow. It shows all the emotions, and then I've got
Okay.
reflections on dealing with the emotions. So it takes you through the process. So it's a part memoir, part self help guide.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, it sounds really nice, actually, really nicely set out. And like you
Yeah,
say, to like for somebody to work that journey through alongside you, rather than a, here's how to do it, but here's how
yeah.
I went through it, do it with me. I like the sound of that as a process.
Mm.
Yeah. I wish I'd have known about your book. I would say 25 years ago, but 30 years ago. Excuse me, sorry. But yeah.
Now I want to tell you about the forgiveness of other.
Yeah, that
So
sounds good.
just my story, I think, is quite interesting because I'd left the country and it was 14 years after I was raped, and I was coming home for my first holiday. And in those 14 years, I'd never once, the rapist had been apprehended and he was given a 25-year prison sentence. And
Okay.
I had never once sort of thought about, um, has he been released? Or, I never wanted to follow up really as to what had happened to him, sort of just brushed it aside. And I was coming
Mhm.
home for my first holiday. And to this day, I have no idea what prompted me to contact the authorities, but I contacted them and I asked them what his status was. And they said that he was coming up for his parole hearing the day after I arrived in the country, which was
Oh
just
no.
such a coincidence. And the law had just changed in South Africa a couple of months before, allowing the victim, as they call it, of crime to attend a parole hearing.
Hmm.
So I was the first person in South Africa to attend a parole hearing.
Oh my
And
word.
and everyone said to me, I mustn't go, and why am I going, and what am I going to say, and am I going to endorse his parole? And I said, I don't know. I don't know why I'm going. I'm allowed to go, so I'm going. And
Hmm.
a friend of mine said, I must forgive. And I said, what? Don't be stupid. I can't forgive. But he got me thinking, and I did some research and I prepared this long, convoluted speech just in case, never really believing that I would forgive. Anyway, so during the parole hearing, they asked me if I had anything to say. So I read this long speech, which he didn't understand. English was not his first language. And there
Okay.
was just too much. He had a grade 6 education, so he wasn't well educated. So it was all way over his head. But I read
Yeah.
it anyway. I read it anyway. And I thought, oh, this is a bit heavy. And then I looked him in the eyes and I said, I forgive you. And as I said it, I thought, I do. It was like,
Yeah.
wow, I just forgave him. It was
Yeah.
such a strange feeling. And then the authorities said to me that they would tell me in 7 days if he got parole or not. And I looked at them and I said, no, you won't tell me. I don't need to know. I don't want to know. And
No.
that is where the bond was completely broken. That really set me completely free
Good for you.
from him. It broke that bond completely.
Yeah. Oh, it's strange because I've never had a chance to go around to that area of anything, or to actually re-meet with anybody. But you don't have to meet that person face to face to forgive them either, do you? Because
No,
that's
you
not
don't
actually
have
about
to.
them. That's not about them at
Yeah, it's
all.
about
It's about yourself.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's definitely about you just breaking that bond that is holding you to that situation or that
Mm,
person.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, wow. Yeah, forgiving somebody is powerful, but like you say, it's powerful for you, for yourself. Um,
Yeah.
and you said about the victim of crime, referring to him in the parole meeting. Is that what you said?
Well, the authorities say that the victim of the crime can attend the parole hearing. So I
Oh,
was
right.
the victim. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were
Even though I
saying.
don't like it, even though I wasn't the victim anymore, I was now a
No,
thriver.
good for you.
That's what they call us. They call us a victim. So
Yeah, because one of the things that occurred to me in the last few years, I'll say it's taken me until the last few years for it to really sink into this bit up here, is when you think about what mental state you would have to be in to commit a crime like that. That person's a victim in their own right before it even happens. Something is
and
going on in their life to make them do that, and they're not in the right place of or in state of mind or mental health to even commit a crime like that.
and that
And that's what helped me forgive when I realised, actually no, even a long time ago, um, when I was trying to find out why my son was having problems as a youngster, and I was trying to look up things like ADHD and dyslexia and dyspraxia and stuff like that. What, you know, I knew something wasn't right, but I hadn't heard about Asperger's at that time. Oh, she's gone again, bless her. Hopefully she'll come straight back on. This is what kept happening while we were trying to set the meeting up earlier. She just kept getting kicked off. Um, but yeah, trying to get through that, I finally realised that the person who had um, kept me in a state of abuse for over a year through morbid jealousy was actually his mental health problem. And although he was trying to make everything out as my fault, and that I was to blame for his emotions and that I was antagonizing him, whatever it was, everything that he said was making out was my fault. You're back again. Hello. um, so yeah,
I
it
don't
turned
know
out
what's
realised.
going on here.
Yeah, I know that was really sudden that time. Just disappeared. um, but yeah, just saying, recognizing that through trying to find out about my son's journey, that actually this previous chap that I'd been with had abused me for over a year, because I realised that he then had this morbid jealousy and he had OCD, but not the sort where it was the physical actions. That was his mother. His mother had very clear OCD, but at the time I knew her, I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it. It wasn't talked about. But it was when
Yeah.
I realised that he'd got OCD, but more in mental OCD and how he thought about things, and was completely obsessive. Like if somebody looked across the street at me, that was it. 24-hour discussion. Who was that person? Why were they looking at you like that? How do you know them? How long have you been having an affair with it? You know, I'd have all of that for like a good 24 hours after somebody even looked across the street. Um, and so this went on for over a year, and other things as well. But it was realizing in the end, do you know, actually he was like that because he was really the victim of his own mind. I just happened to be in the way.
Sure, yeah, it's hard,
Yeah.
but it's so important that we if when you're going through the forgiveness process, that you understand that had the person known better at the time, they would have acted differently. So,
Yeah.
as you were saying, they are victim of their own set of circumstances. So, had the rapist, in my case, known that what he was doing was wrong, he
Mm.
maybe wouldn't have done it.
No.
He didn't, that was his frame of reference. And in the court case, he kept, his defense was that I was that prostitute who gave myself to the boys on the street corner. So it was okay. That was his frame of reference.
Oh, blimey. Yeah. But again, it's just a lot of people who are, especially when we're talking in terms of domestic abuse at home and child abuse, very often because they received the same when they were young, and it's just a pattern passing on, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
But it's about helping people to realise that this is not okay, and this is where, from the right frame of mind, the activism is still important, as in helping to reframe people's mindset before the incident happens, as well as still supporting the survivors afterwards, because we can't just, and we could just carry on picking up the survivors and the victims, but there also needs to be a way of approaching this from changing mindsets before the crime, and that's the activism side of it, but done in the right way, isn't it? Not.
Well, one of the things that I'm working on now, it's my Be Brave product. And that is to teach primarily starting with teenagers, but it can start from young kids and it definitely goes up well into adulthood, is to
Mm.
teach people to be brave. And my brave formula is the B stands for boundaries. If people understand, sometimes they don't even understand their own boundaries. So to understand their own boundaries and in a relationship, the boundaries of your partner, and the boundaries of the people in your community, to actually understand what is considered good and bad and right and wrong. And then the
Mm.
R is to respect those boundaries. And I know it's hard in today's society to understand and respect people's boundaries. A man opens a car door for a woman and she says, I can open my own car door.
Oh,
so
I
the next
know.
time, so the next time he doesn't open a car door, and the woman says, why don't you open my car door? So
Yeah.
it makes it very difficult for men to understand what those boundaries are and to respect them. And so it all comes down to communication. We've got to talk to each other. And then the A is consent, agreement. Make sure you get
Mm-hmm.
an enthusiastic yes. No is not good enough. It's actually that very strong yes, I want to do this next thing. And I'm not only talking about sex, it can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Opening the
just
car door,
making
yeah.
sure you're on the same page and you both want to go
Mm.
forward together. And then the V is your values. You've got values, there's those indoctrinated values that you learn from your parents, from your school, from your religious institutes, thou shalt not kill type of values. And then there are your own personal values, what's important to you. And a lot of people don't know what their values are. And
No.
so they need to determine that and then to find out the values of the people around them and then stick
Yeah.
with people with the same values
Yeah.
and uh, and to share those values vulnerably. That's the other
Mm.
V. Be vulnerable, walk without skin, share what you're feeling. And finally the E, I've got three E's. The first one is equality. It's just so important and it's just so not done. Equality between everybody and everything.
Yeah.
The second one is empathy, is to understand
Mm.
how other people are feeling, and then to empower yourself and those
Mm.
around you to stop negative, toxic behaviors.
Yeah. No, that's really nice system, actually. I like that. And yeah, every one of those is spot on, absolutely. And I don't cover anything like that in my book at all, to be honest, not in that sense. Um, yeah, yours and my book need to be a double package, I think.
I think so.
Between them, they cover just about everything, I think. That's brilliant. Um, and it reminded me, actually, when you were saying about the empathy, when my son was about 9 or 10, he went out to play one day and he went up the road and there was some other families out there playing, and he came back with a black eye and a chipped tooth. And he did literally get quite beaten up the road. And when we questioned what had happened, there was a little girl about 2 or 3 years old, and she'd got what we call a Scotch egg. So it's an egg wrapped in mincemeat in breadcrumb. And she dropped it and went to pick it up. And he picked it up and held it up out of reach and said, "Oh, no, you can't eat that. It's dirty." Well, the other kids out there playing were related to her and thought he was stealing her food and beat him up. And bearing in mind, this is a child who was suicidally depressed, had chronic depression for several years already. My own son, this is. And here he is getting beaten up for helping somebody. And when I sat down and talked through it with him, I said, well, we know what the families up the road are like. I said, and probably a good way to think about it might be, and it might not be right, I said, but a good way to think about it is that we don't know everything about that family. That Scotch egg tonight might have been the only meal that little girl got. I said, and they thought you're stealing it from her. And he said, I haven't thought about that. And
But isn't
yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, and then for him, he was able to kind of, I wouldn't say forgive easily or let go easily, but he was able to at least understand rather than hold a grudge about it. So,
But that comes back to, for me, the glue that holds everything together is talk about it, communicate, have a
yeah,
conversation. Instead of just starting to beat up on your son, the kids should have been saying, why did you take the thing away from the little girl? You should have
yeah,
said, what are you doing? And he would have said, well, it's dirty. And then the communication would have resolved all the problems. And we don't communicate. We react before we talk. And it's so
yeah,
important that we communicate, that we share our feelings, we share what's going on. And that whole incident could have been avoided had somebody just asked the question.
yeah. But they were all children, and the other children were not the communicating kind. They were,
But we've got to teach our kids to communicate
yeah.
from a young age. We've got to teach them.
Yes, no, I did with my children, definitely. From that day on, my son didn't try and help somebody without asking if they needed help. um,
That, that's actually a very good thing. You know, as a first aider, you're not allowed to actually help somebody without asking them first. You're
no, as
supposed
long
to
as they're
say,
conscious. If they're
can
unconscious,
I put
you can't
this,
ask.
can I put this bandage on you? You know, if the guy's
Yeah,
conscious, you've got to actually ask their permission. So,
yeah. I was in St John's for 7 years, actually. I used to do
okay,
St John Ambulance. I used to teach the cadets and badgers. I loved it. And yeah, I had a lady who was unconscious for 40 minutes one day. We sat waiting with her for the ambulance. And
sure.
because she was unconscious, myself and the colleague that worked with her, we still talked to her the whole time. And
Wow.
it's brilliant you say this. This is really a good example because they always say that the last thing to go when you go unconscious is the hearing. And she was out for the entire 40 minutes.
Wow.
Anyway, eventually the ambulance came and they gave her an injection of something and sat her up and tried to get her to eat and drink something. And then she'd just gone out again and they took her off to hospital. 3 days later, or 2 days later, she came back to the venue and she came over to thank us for being very professional throughout the entire process. And she repeated nearly every single word we'd said.
Oh, wow.
She'd even repeated the things that I'd said on the phone to the paramedics and the doctors. So she knew that I was speaking with the ambulance crew. And because they were a long while getting there, a doctor had phoned us as well. And she knew the whole lot. She knew how old I'd told them I thought she was. And she was proud as punch because I got it wrong on the right way. But yeah, it just
um,
goes to show that even when somebody is unconscious, still keep
yeah,
talking to them with that respect, because the emotions that she came through from that with were not then trauma, but actually one of feeling well looked after and safe. So yeah,
yeah.
that's a really good point. But yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, I must just quickly apologize. I'm not used to talking on the phone and I keep moving. I
All
keep
right. I know
so
it's a shame the computer wouldn't stay connected.
I
Um,
don't know what,
but
and I've never had so many technical problems in one day. So, so it's about the emotion. So now I've got to move from this situation and not be a victim, not be upset about it, and forge forward on my phone and become forgive the technology.
yeah, give the technology and say You're done with. I'm moving to my phone. Yeah. You got a better camera on your phone as well. It's a much better picture.
But my battery keeps running down, and the cord isn't long enough to keep charging it. Really having problems here.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah. No, I've tried all of my technologies with the phone, the tablet, the laptop over the weeks, and the tablet seems to be the best one, which is what I'm speaking on now. And the phone ends up being there for backup, so I can, like, when I'm technically setting up and I'm seeing you're struggling, so I'm on the phone saying, "Are you all right there, Lois? Are you okay? Can you get in?" So I've got that for backup. The laptop I'm watching the comments on. So I got it sussed in the end, but it takes practice, and it's the same with emotions for everything. It takes practice, and whether it's your book, and what we'll do is we'll put the link to your book in the comments as well afterwards. So anybody watching this afterwards will be able to find a link straight to your book. Do you know, random question right at the last minute, do you have any favorite quotes that you like to use?
Well, I got my favorite quote, and I don't know if I'll remember it accurately, but it's really when you fall, when something goes wrong, when you make a mistake, when something happens, it's so important that you pick yourself up, that you learn from your mistake, that you forgive yourself, that you laugh, and that you continue with renewed vigor and determination. That's my favorite quote by me.
Brilliant. Oh, I like it. I like it. Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that. So yeah,
Yeah,
so do
so
you plan on
it's about laughing. You can't hold those negative feelings. You've got to go forward. I've also got, if anybody wants it, it's a free ebook on how to get your mojo, how you can ignite your mojo. So I can send you that link as well.
yeah,
So
that'd be
you
great.
can
Thank you.
keep
Yeah, can either
smiling,
send
keep happy,
yeah, can either
keep
send them
living
to
in
me
your
on Messenger,
bubble.
or yeah, can either send them to me on Messenger or pop them straight in, either way. But yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great. And then what I'm
yeah.
going to do over time is repurpose these videos to keep them afloat as well. I'm going to share them on the website, which is almost here. So they'll get to keep being reviewed. So yeah, no, thank you. And it's been a real pleasure actually hearing what you've got to share tonight. And so important that I would say you can't fix something you're not aware of. And even though people know that they've been through a trauma and that they're a victim of something, I don't think they're really always aware of how much support there is out there, or the types of support and the processes for coming through that and transforming from it. And like you say, transforming right through to thriving after the fact. And it's so important to have these discussions and share this knowledge. And I really, really appreciate the time you've taken to share that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so important that they know that everybody out there, you're not alone. It could be you go to a therapist, a psychologist. It could be that you find a group on social media that's there to support you. There are so many people, there's groups, there's people like Kay, there's people like myself. We're out there, and you will find support, and you will find the right support. What works for me won't work for the next person. So you need to try, go and play around and try. Everybody's journey is unique. You will all go through the same phases, but at different paces. You will fall back, you get triggered, you think you're thriving, and then something triggers you and you go all the way back to victim. It happens. So it's
Yeah.
important that you just know that you will get there, but reach out. Somebody out there will help you.
I think you've just touched on another very important thing there as well, triggers, because I think that's something I find every now and again when life gets a bit overbearing, that can trigger old emotions as well. So at times it might be just having a book at hand to remind you to go back through that process, but it gets quicker each time to come back to that place of thriving. But every now and again you do have those little trip ups, don't you? It's like you're running and you're running and running, but you stumble and you get up and run again, but it doesn't mean you won't stumble again. And you have to every now and again just pick yourself back up. And I
Yeah,
think it's also being aware that even when you've had progress and you feel better from something in some way, that's not necessarily the end of the progress, and there'll always be a little bit more progress and a bit more progress, that the progress doesn't stop, but every now and again you do get those little setbacks, and it's about having coping strategies in place for them, whether it is a person you call or a particular video you watch on YouTube or a book you pick up, watching videos like these, even because these are going to be shared. Just going and following those groups. I mean, it's great, but having those strategies in place is really important, not just after the facts immediately, but for life, really. And
It's
being
developing that
aware.
resilience. It's developing
Yeah.
that resilience that helps you cope. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So after all that, do you have any amazing plans for the rest of the week? Because you know what, we are, now I think about it, why have I not thought about this earlier? We are only 3 days away from Christmas. We're only 3 days. I don't know where this year has gone. I really don't. I'm trying to
It's
sell my
gone.
house in January to be in here now, and it's 3 days from Christmas. What happened to the bit in the middle?
It went to learning to use all this new technology in lockdown.
Yes. Oh my goodness, I've definitely done some of that this year. StreamYard's been the best one, apart from tonight. It's less down. But we still
Sure.
managed to win. We managed to thrive. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so basically, to anybody who's been watching these, this is now the third, I believe. Oh, I got to have a look in the yellow book. I got to have a look in the yellow book, and I bet it's not in here again. I've got to go and find the list somewhere. Yes, this was the third already of the 52-week series of live discussions. So I did the 28 days, then went on to the 52 weeks, and this is the third one already. That is going quick. I've just got to find out who's on next week, and I must start getting prepared better before I begin. That's my improvement for the new year, to be more prepared. Right, so next week we have Victoria Steed, who will be talking about women and families around drug and alcohol abuse. So women and children in houses with drug and alcohol abuse. That's next week's topic. So I will get that set up later tonight or first thing tomorrow and put the invite out. Sorry, I was a bit late setting yours up this week. Last week just absolutely vanished in regular all-night stints of proofreading to get the book out by the end of the week.
Oh, well done. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yes, it's there. The book is out at last. So yeah,
Yay.
brilliant. I collapsed the weekend. I crashed. It's like all my energy that I'd put in for a month just like left me flat for about 3 days solid. But I'm bouncing back. Bouncing back.
Great.
So I always say I bounce, and the harder I get thrown down, the harder I bounce. It
But
just hurts a bit.
you never really bounce back. Resilience, everyone says it's bouncing back. You never go back to where you were before. You
No, it's
bounce,
it's
you,
continual like this, isn't
yeah,
it?
you get back to some meaningful life, but you'll never be the same after a major incident.
No, never. No, because you don't go back to the same place. You just keep bouncing through life altogether, don't you? And sometimes it's little bounces, and sometimes it's big ones. But it's, yeah, no, you don't. You're right. You don't go back. You do go forward. It
Bounce
does
forward.
feel it does feel quite repressive for a while at times. But it is, you've shared such an incredible message tonight about how important it is to share that knowledge, that there is support. And although everybody says it's good to talk, you need to talk to the right people. You need to read the right advice. You need to follow the right mentors online or get in touch with the right coaches. And it's so important that if anybody knows anyone who's going through that victim mentality, then get in touch with somebody like Lois with the book, and we'll make sure that all of those links are put in. But yeah, thank you so much. And I really, really hope everybody has, I would like to say, a very Merry Christmas. It's going to be a very difficult Christmas this year, I understand, but mastering life is all about mastering change. And this is the biggest change I've ever known for any Christmas. And be creative. Be creative. Find ways to be mindful and find peace. I think this year, as much as happiness, find peace around what's happening, and some gratitudes. I think we really need some gratitudes for technology, because it's through technology, despite its little hiccups tonight, that we've managed to have the most incredible discussion and share that with anybody in the world who wants to watch it. And the same is all that technology is there for everybody to stay in touch this winter, this Christmas. And it may feel quite cut off and remote, but actually we've got a lot of ways not to feel as cut off and remote as we would have done 50 years ago. So I'm very grateful for it all. I'm still waiting to find out whether my sore throat means I can go to company for Christmas Day or sit here on my own, but we'll find out. I've got a feeling I might be back on here just saying, someone come and talk to me.
I hope it's just a sore throat from talking too much.
Probably, but I hadn't been on the video for a week, so it's probably not that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So, but yeah, wishing everybody Merry Christmas. Thank you ever so much tonight, Lois, for a really
Thanks.
lovely discussion.
Thank you,
And
Kay, for having me. And everybody, be safe and fly free.
oh, that sounds lovely. Fly free. I should go to bed with that thought in my head. All right. Well, thank you so much indeed. And we'll see everybody 7 o'clock next Tuesday with Victoria Seed about families of drug and alcohol abuse. Thank you very much, Lois. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye bye, everyone.